Hey, what's up, everybody? Coach Jerry here, doing a live broadcast. And today we are going to talk about some triggers that come up. But more to the point, this goes in line with a lot of the lives I've done and the actual group workshop that I just finished a month and a half or so ago on triggers and the false core. And if you didn't know, we're having another workshop coming up. So if this type of content, this type of information revelation is something that piques your interest, by all means, we'd love to have you in the group. And this, if you haven't heard of these concepts before, this might be a little incomplete for you. But if it piques your interest and it's something that you want to know more of, just go to my featured tabs. If you haven't been to the featured tabs in this Facebook group, and if you're watching on YouTube or on my business page or on my main profile page, go to my Facebook group, request to join, get in there, go to my featured tabs, and there's all kinds of free information on there from, kinesiology, back pain, hip pain, slip discs, all the way to mental emotional management. Okay. So I just want to preface with that. So before I get into that, this particular topic today is kind of series based on the false core. And just as a reminder, what is the false core? The false core is the organizing principle. It's the main belief we have about ourselves. And it's usually along the lines of, I'm imperfect, or there's something wrong with me. I'm unworthy. I'm worthless. I don't know. I am incompetent. I am alone and unsupported. I'm missing out on something. I'm powerless and vulnerable. I'm loveless or unloved, lovable, unlovable. Okay, so that's kind of a intro into the false core. Now, again, I'm not going to get into that too much. Go to my featured tabs. There's all kinds of stuff on the false core. One particular one I'd lead you to was a live Q&A I did a couple months ago. It's in there. It's within the first 10 or 12 posts in the featured tabs. So what I want to talk about today, I want to break down with you today, is the states of feeling like you don't know and the states of feeling fear. Okay. And if we're being honest with ourselves, whenever we feel like we're triggered, we're generally veering towards one of those. Okay. So those of you that have taken my workshops, those of you who worked with me, you're familiar with the concept of the false core and how it plays a role in everything we do in life. This is for you. So what happens is we get to a state of familiarity with the false core, but it's the distractors of the false core. In other words, it's other people's false cores that get down to us and distract us. So that's why typically when I'm working with clients or working with groups, one of the things that come up really consistently is, I'm being triggered by this belief or this feeling, and it's not my false core. So sometimes you just got to do some work. You got to do some investigating to get down to it. One particular example is, let's take like someone who has a false core of I am incompetent. And they might deal with anxiety surrounding their competence. They might always want to filter everything through their brain. And when they feel confused, they really get stuck on I don't know, right? People do have a false core of I don't know, but basically there's two main states we get stuck in for all intents and purposes. And that is the feeling of you don't know, confusion, and then the feeling of fear, where that be, and that fear is like really a fear that's pointed towards annihilation of, like, we have a subconscious belief or an unconscious belief that we might die or a part of us will die. So there's things that threaten our beliefs, things that threaten our identity structure. And typically what we do is we get externally focused with that energy. So we want other people to change. We want to understand the motives behind other people much more readily than we want to point that awareness inward and look at ourselves. Okay. So it's like, if you're scared, are you really going to die right here? And what does that really mean? What's really going to die? Now, if it's a belief or an identity, am I willing to look at that belief and that identity? And if you've heard me talk about like individuation in the past, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about the identity and beliefs that you form are yours and yours alone. They aren't just given to you. They weren't indoctrinated into you. Okay. So I don't know and annihilation, fear. I don't know and fear. So we'll go back to that example of someone who has a false core of incompetence. And maybe this person experiences anxiety when they don't know if they can trust friends. Okay. And generally these people with that false core of incompetence that really stems from I don't know, they have a really hard time connecting with people. And when they get disintegrated, when they get out of alignment, what they find themselves doing is isolating a lot. Okay, so that's just a little background on this particular personality type, if you will, or archetype, if you will. So that person isn't sure if they can trust people. So they'll connect to a certain point, but eventually they will end up isolating and disconnecting. And they will create this pattern of wanting connection, getting connection, but don't want to connect very deeply. And then they end up isolating, disconnecting, and they just get in this real pattern. And without knowing it, the reason why they're not connecting with people is because they're not sure they can trust people. And the reason why they can't trust people is because of their own pattern of disconnecting. Following me? So this person gets in a state of, I don't know if I can trust. Okay. And then this person might also have a sub-belief. This is where the distractors come in. All right. So they might get really ruminating on, I'm not good enough. That's someone else's false core. And because this is all based on the Enneagram personality, again, if this isn't unfamiliar to you, join my workshop or go to my featured tabs and watch some of the other videos. But whatever your base personality is, it determines what your false core is to a large extent, to almost every extent. Okay. So because we have all these 9 personality types within us, base types within us, we go back and forth, and that's part of what I call our pattern. Okay. So we get distracted in someone else's false core, which in this case, getting distracted and feeling not good enough. So I'm not good enough. So I don't know if I can trust them. But the real reason why I don't know if I can trust them is because I know they can't trust me to connect deeply. But that all boils down to feeling incompetent. Why do they feel incompetent? They feel incompetent because they're always experiencing I don't know. Let me say that again. They feel incompetent because they're always experiencing I don't know. Now, for this particular individual, this personalized situation, this is going to be really hammering in on their false core, because this particular personality type, like I said before, filters everything through the brain. They might have a strong gut, they might have a strong heart, but at the end of the day, the judge, jury, and executioner is in the brain. And if they can't trust their heart, they can't trust their soul, they want to know. Well, that never works. That never works. So the big picture in all of this, the big picture takeaway from all this is, when you learn what your personality type is, you can learn what your pattern is. And in knowing what your false core is, your main belief about yourself, you can see why you're using your pattern. That's the foundational, fundamental thing to start with, right there. Okay. And then to avoid getting confused and avoid thinking your false core isn't your false core, realize how these distractors can throw you into these 2 states. 1, feeling like you don't know. 2, feeling like you're annihilated, like you're going to be annihilated, or a belief or an identity within you has been annihilated or is in threat or jeopardy of being annihilated. And all this points back to a lack of individuation, a lack of truly knowing where your beliefs come from. Because if you are rock solid in your beliefs, if you're rock solid in your individuated state, then it really doesn't, we can have compassion and empathy for the people that aren't there. And newsflash, that's almost everybody. Almost everybody. Okay. So I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, but this is something that's been coming up quite a bit in the people I'm working with, and also in DMs and some people that have worked with me in the past, where it's like, this is coming up, and it's like, it's your false core. It's like, no, it's this. I'm feeling not good enough. What is not good enough? Is that closer to incompetent or competent? Why do you feel incompetent? What's your superpower? Thinking, investigating. Well, what is the cure for I don't know? The cure for I don't know is knowing. So if we don't take the time to go in there and investigate knowing, right, we're reinforcing that belief of I'm incompetent. Okay. So again, this only applies to a specific personality type, which is the type 5 within the Enneagram. The type 5 is the investigator. Their center of intelligence is in their head. And depending on the individual, they may or may not have a strong intuition. They may or may not have a strong heart as well. But if they're unaware that they need their heart and their soul and their brain can just sit on the bench once in a while, they will constantly find themselves landing on I don't know. Whether it's a powerless feeling that gets them to feel vulnerable and want to figure it out and then they don't know, whether it's an unlovable feeling that makes them feel vulnerable and powerless and leads them to I don't know, or whether it's feeling alone and unsupported and leads them to feeling, like a part of them is going to be dying, an ego death, that leads them to not knowing how to fix it, which makes them feel incompetent because they know they need to go and figure it out and investigate it. Okay, so that's how just one personality type can navigate their pattern in a way that produces undesirable results because they won't fully buy in to how that false core is influencing them. And the wonderful thing is, to the degree that you're experiencing that anxiety, that frustration, anger, to the degree that you're experiencing that and not digging into what's going on, that is the level of relief that you're going to experience when you figure it out. Doesn't have to be complicated at all. It's super simple. We make it complicated. Okay. So lastly, I'll just finish with this. What do these states lead to? Why do I want to dismantle my triggers? Right? And that's really what we're doing, is we're dismantling when I'm talking about that. So we break it down. We realize, competency is subjective. And the only reason why you feel that is because you're not using your superpower of investigating the situation. But instead of looking at it and breaking it down, what do we do when we're triggered? We go to distracting ourselves. We go to procrastination. We go to maybe overt acting out, passive aggressive behavior, and the like. Everything we can do to avoid looking inward. So there isn't a person on the planet that doesn't experience these things. There isn't a person on the planet that doesn't get into these states. But if you don't know how to dismantle it and ultimately dissolve the energy that you've created, then you're really just setting yourself up to stay in pattern, in your personality's pattern, and keep yourself stuck or keep yourself from progressing towards your highest self. And I'd say most of the people in this group that ever interact with anything, comment, like, whatever in this group, that are ever interested in anything I'm posting, they are definitely on the other end of the spectrum. You guys are striving towards your highest self and striving towards ending the BS in your life. So that's why I love it. So I love you guys. All right. Let's see if there's any comments here. I don't even think there's anybody watching. I apologize for not giving anybody time to hop on or anything like that, but I've got an appointment here coming up real quick, but I just wanted to throw this out there. I'll be doing another live within the next day or so. Just set your notifications to see the live. If you're interested in learning more about what I posted yesterday, as a reminder, I posted, some along the lines of, if you're getting rehabilitation for your L5, S1 in your low back, and your therapist is not looking at your C7, T1, you need to fire them. And that is the truth. Okay. So I'm going to do a live and explain to you why that's the case. Explain the correlation and the dangers of allopathic approaches. All right, guys, I hope that wasn't like too all over the place for you, but really it is like, just realize that when you feel like you don't know, when you feel fear, okay, if you know your false core and you know your pattern, you can dismantle it and you can learn to dissolve the energy. You don't have to live with it one more day. You do not have to live with this. This is not just the way it is. Okay. And also, it is not the other person. It is not the other people in the world that are causing this within you. You're creating it. You're creating it, and it's being created from a lack of awareness of how it works. Another state of I don't know. All right, guys. I appreciate a few of you that tuned in, and if you need anything at any time, always DM me. You can comment on this post direct. And if you're not in my Facebook group, get in my Facebook group. Send me a request. I'll let you know. All right. Peace, much love, and live well.